Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. My name is Chris and I'm here with Jim and Alberto as always. How's it going, Jim?
Well, I'm in the wonderful northern state of Indiana, which means it's Arctic. No, it's not. I just wanted to throw that out there because it's hot and it's ridiculous. So it's okay, though. It is all right. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty well. Keeping very busy as always, but life is good.
Good.
Yeah. Berto, what's new with you?
A bunch of random things. Work continues to get busier. It's been over 100 degrees for entirely too many days in a row now. And I actually took on Danny Vega's carnivore keto cut, and so I am on week 1 of that. It's a pretty intensive little, very intense, I should say, 4-week cutting program, 2 weeks of maintenance, and then I believe a 4 to 6 week reverse. Uh-huh. So it'll be interesting. I've never done anything structured as far as a cut. I usually just kind of just feel it out and run with it. But I was at this really weird place where it probably has a lot to do with the heat, but I just haven't been hungry lately. And I've been having to force myself to eat to get to my macros. So the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, this actually might be in order. Kind of starve myself out a little bit and, hit my targets that are considerably lower now and then kind of see how that works for me. So now, hitting my macro numbers and my calories is easy, but now it's a psychological thing because, now that I can see that I'm eating less, I feel hungrier.
Oh, yeah. 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 Of course, you're coming from a really high number to begin with. I didn't have a clue how many calories I was eating before my attempt to do the carnivore keto cut, and I didn't do the workouts very well. I didn't work the system very well, and so it didn't work for me. But it's a great program, and it's the workouts are freaking intense.
I've only done the first 3, and I'm not even looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, the workouts in the program, they are definitely not beginner level things, but it's not targeted at beginner. This isn't a cut that you do for, hey, I've got 15 pounds of last bit of flub that needs to be taken off or something. This is legit what people could use for competition prep. So. It's pretty intense, and it's short term too. So
yeah, so it'll be interesting. My birthday's coming up, and that's when I usually try to cut down a little bit just for 100% strict vanity reasons. and so this time, I'm just going to take someone else's structured approach and run with it and see where we end up.
Yeah, very cool. It'll be very interesting to see those results. Well, let's talk. News real quick, or not necessarily even news, but let's cover some business real quick. For our listeners, please make sure if you get the chance to go out and leave a survey on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating and a review. Those help our get the algorithm going for us and gets us out in front of more people, and that's really, really helpful as we're on a mission to make our little dent in the world, however that might be. And then we've had quite a few people join the beginners group this week. We had 20 new people in the 101 group, right?
We did. The group has well surpassed 500 members and is I think the average join is actually a little bit higher than our big main Keto Man's Club group. So the newbies are stepping up into their game for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Getting them plugged in there and getting those resources into the hands of the people who need it, and that's really, really cool. So let's go through our shout outs here real quick.
Chris,
Jim,
you go first.
Oh.
No, I want you to go. You never get to go first, and I want to make sure that you get to take the first step here today. You are a giver, and I want you to take this time.
Okay then. Let me find the post again. There it is. So I'm going to be shouting out Dylan Wright. He's actually one of our 101 members, and he got in the group, and he did a nice little collage of several different takes of him over the last 2 years, roughly. Looks like he. I'll just read his most of his posts here real quick. New to the group and figured I would share my progress with the keto so far. I've reached my heaviest known weight of 500 pounds in 2018. I began keto after my mom had success doing it. After making several unsuccessful attempts at dieting in the past, I thought I was doomed to being heavy forever. I started by doing keto in about 6 to 9 weeks 6 to 9 week segments from June to November of 2018. Pictures in I had lost approximately 50 pounds by that point. From November to December 29, I was down a total of 130 pounds. December of 2019, so that a year later, 130 pounds. By May 2020, I had reached a total loss of 210 pounds, and I currently have lost 225 pounds now, and I'm enjoying life and I'm much more active than before. Now, just for scope, I'm 5'8", and I currently weigh roughly about 225 pounds. He lost one of me.
Wow.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's nuts.
So awesome job, Dylan. I dare say you won't be in the beginners group for very long. You're not a beginner anymore, and so he's doing awesome and definitely wanting to continue to work with him. And he touched on something, and I think Jim, you actually commented on his post. About his mention about body dysmorphia and how we talk about it here on the podcast quite a lot, because I don't see, and I think this is almost universal for any one of us that has lost a lot of weight. I don't see in the mirror that I've lost 80 pounds. I don't see that, and I'm sure that that's the same for him. So awesome job, and kudos to you, Dylan.
Completely agreed.
Jim?
So I have two. One is the legit one, if you will. It actually didn't happen in the group, but it's one of our members who I'm Facebook friends with also, Mark Lesney, who's been a guest on the show as well. Yesterday, he put this picture up that, is freaking remarkable. He is ripped. It's just that's just all there is to it. Sleeveless shirt, shorts. Dude is ripped. So kudos to Mark. Go listen to his story here on the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts and whatnot, because he's awesome in many different ways. But wow, dude just nailed it for sure. But the second one I want to do is Ryan Reeve, who posted this week, big NSV non-scale victory yesterday. Talking to some guys at work and joking that my new pants would be fat guy approved. I hear a guy say, I just hate those guys, the ones whose metabolism just stays good and they're always allows them to stay fit, even they get older. And he points at Ryan. And here's where, Pastor, I apologize in advance. So he says, itch, please. I was 360 pounds 2 years ago. This shiitake mushrooms takes hard work and dedication every single day. Now let me eat my salad while you go enjoy your double chili cheeseburger, fries, and a sweet tea. He's just laid the law down. Dude has made an awesome transformation for sure. He's put before and after pictures in the group and on his personal profile. I don't know what his exact numbers are from where he started, or I know where he started at the 360, but I don't know where he's at the moment. And the best part of all, he lives in Inman, South Carolina. So he's my people. Just saying. So those are my two shout outs of the week. And
Very
now
cool.
I'll turn it over to Alberto.
Well, I'm still on a semi hiatus from Facebook, so I'm taking the very, very easy way out on this one. But everybody's friend Gormy has celebrated 100,000 downloads on the Fat Guy Forum, which is a pretty remarkable number. And not only that, but he was also featured on a quick little segment on the TV show Hooked on the Look. They gave him like a little 9-minute segment that was actually like if you know Gormy and you watch that video, it kind of brings a tear to your eye. I saw someone had sent it to me and they're like, "Isn't this your buddy?" And so I messaged him and we were both like kind of freaked out about it. Even he was like, "Dude, I wasn't ready for this. I wasn't ready for this thing to come out and for everyone to see it." I'm like, "Well, you did good and here it is, man. So just roll with it." But it's a cool little 9-minute segment. I'll send it to you guys. I'm not going to post it in the group. I'll leave that to him if he wants to do it, but I'll definitely get it to you guys. Mm-hmm. And then second kind of shout out is everybody's favorite carnivore, Dr. Sean Baker, who on Instagram is Sean Baker 1967, has started a crowdsourcing fund to hopefully set off the very first clinical trials with the carnivore diet. And if you know anything about trials or even heard anything about them, that is not an undertaking. He's trying to raise $200,000 because that's what they believe the bare minimum amount of money needed is. And he's going for it. And I think that's pretty awesome because, I mean, if not him, who?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The MeatRx group will definitely be the place to do that. He'll have volunteers out the wazoo for it, too. At least I'm hoping. So that's really cool. And yeah, he's been posting a lot about that on Instagram. And if you can support it, that would be great. Definitely that's right along with our mission here. So that's a great thing. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a surprise. I forgot to prep you guys. So, you surprised me with beef fizz. So I'll surprise you with this. This morning, I wake up to a notification on my phone. Now, for a little shop talk here, our Google Voice number, which you can call and leave a voicemail on, is 512-518-6161. That's tied to my Google account, actually. And so I get a notification on my phone this morning when I wake up, and there's a voicemail. And it goes something like this.
What's up, everybody? It's me, Alberto, your least favorite co-host. Day 3 of the carnivore keto cut calls for a 5K walk, run, or jog. So, without thinking, as I usually do things, I decided I'm going to do a 25-pound rush. I have a half mile left. It is 7:41, 78 degrees, with 90% humidity. And I can tell you right now, this was not the greatest idea. I don't think I sweat this much running an actual 5K as opposed to walking one. With 25 pounds on my back. But anyways, that's all I got for you. I'll talk to you guys later.
So, Alberto's revisiting his phoning in while doing physical cardio.
Yeah, I totally forgot I left that voicemail. But yeah, long story short, it was a little fuzzy there. It was I decided to ruck this morning, a 25-pound bag of pea gravel in my backpack, and it's about 3.5 miles, and it was in my minimalist shoes, of course. And yeah, the last half mile was not pleasant. It was not pleasant at all.
Yeah, it was already getting to about 90 degrees by that point in the day, right?
Yeah, it was not. It was 90% humidity, and I believe it was if it wasn't, it had to have been close to 80 degrees, if not above 80 degrees by the time I finished.
Yeah. And then felt like, because of the 90-degree humidity, 100 probably.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm sure you took in a lot of salt to make up for that. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm still catching up.
Yeah. Electrolytes. It's the most common thread of I've got a headache and I don't feel very good. Salt. So,
yeah. The first 3 hours of my day were just like, I'm not used to like that particular. It was a brand new physical activity for me.
Oh yeah.
Just like the ruck. And at first you're like, nah, whatever. I got weight on my back. I'm going to go for a walk. But that flies for like the first mile. And then, by the time I got to I was just about at my third mile. So I was, I think, maybe a quarter mile from my house, and that's when I had called. And yeah, I was I don't want to say I was hurting, but it was definitely a lot more exhausting than I expected. So I would say till about noon, I was just all thrown off, and it was like I couldn't get enough pink salt in me just to try to offset it. I just had this really off feeling and kind of like fuzzy head feelings. I just kept shucking salt, and finally about 1:00, I was able to kick it.
Yeah, the Keto Rucker himself did a weekend full of all sorts of different things. I think he might have even done a new to him ruck along with that. I think it was like a 5 point something or other. I forget what it was exactly. But he did a heavy, a light, and then one other activity this last weekend. So I'm sure he's feeling the same pain, only he's a little further north, so it may not be quite so hot. Okay, well, let's. Our guest has been patient enough, waiting in the wings. We have Tony Jacobs, who is a member of the group. He's you have been on Fat Guy Forum, right?
Yes.
Okay. So he's been on Fat Guy Forum before, and he's got a great story to share. I barely know like the surface level, so I'm looking forward to get into and dig deep. Tony, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, kind of where you are, what you do. Let's not worry about the health journey part quite yet, but we'll get into that shortly.
Sure. Well, thanks first of all for having me, guys. This is great. It's an honor. I just love the show. Just love the way you guys, go back and forth, and it's just great to be here and have the same, conversation with you guys. Gosh, how far back do we want to go? I was born and raised in Orange, California. I was your typical latch-key, raised by my mom kid, in the 1970s, and didn't have a dad. Kind of grew up doing that. Fast forward a few years and went to a Christian rock concert, age 11, and my whole life kind of got flipped upside down that night. And two things happened that night. I felt like this was something I wanted to do. Of course, who doesn't want to play loud music, right? And rock out as an 11-year-old. And then I just kind of felt like there at the church, I kind of felt like there was something that I kind of belonged to. And at 11, I probably wasn't able to articulate that, but I just remember that being a big part of my life. And so fast forward a few more years, late teens, early 20s, I actually form a band, and we played, for about 4.5 years, all through Southern California and different places. I always like to tell people we were mildly successful. We did have a following. We did have people that came to our shows and kind of followed us around, but we were just kind of doing our thing. And the whole point.
What were their names though? Like, do we have like a fan club name kind of thing?
You know what? I've actually been asked, like, hey, you should get like all the old like fans and people that followed you that still kind of connect with you, and kind of give them their own like little Facebook name or Instagram. Like,
were they the Tommy Mommies or something along?
But they, we were kind of one of these bands that everybody was throwing beach balls and merch and stuff, but we were poor. So we would throw things like bagels, from the stage and stuff. Obviously non-keto, right? And then they would throw it back like half eaten, and it was kind of like a respect thing, like, hey, thanks for throwing back the half eaten bagel, and it was just, or people would come up and say, hey, would you sign my bagel?
That's awesome.
And we have our show title right there. Will you sign my bagel?
Oh man. Yeah. So, and the band was really wrapped around kind of a positive idea, and really at the heart of it, we wanted to care for people. We wanted to, sing music and do that. But at the same time, even as kids, we had a heart for young people, especially young people that were just kind of struggling with life and stuff. And so that it kind of gave life to the music and stuff. And, those were good years, and as the four of us started growing up, we realized that, maybe it was time to cut our hair and, get real jobs and go off to college. And, and some of them did, and some of them found careers. And I got married, and I stepped into becoming a youth pastor, and I was pretty much just a kid myself. And the senior pastor at the time, he basically just said, "Hey, we need somebody to come in and help us with our fourth, fifth, and sixth grade kids, and we think you'd be great for it." And so, me and my wife, we literally got back from our honeymoon on a Saturday. The very next Sunday, we stepped into doing student ministry, and that was 3 decades ago. And I've never looked back ever since. Of course, a lot has changed. I've had a lot of different roles in my life, but I've either worked for a church, for a school, for nonprofit of some nature. And then during that time, of course, we had 3 kids. When you guys were talking a little bit before the show about girls and stuff, I have 3 of them, and so the girls are definitely taking over the world in my house. Even the dog, who's a boy, sometimes I wonder, like, hey, whose side are you on? And so it's been good, and of course, over the years, because of what I've done, I've moved around a little bit. So I've had the privilege to live in different parts of the country. Of course, California has always been and will always kind of have a soft spot in my heart. But I've lived in Arizona, Wyoming, Indianapolis, and now I'm in Texas. And from you, Austin guys, just a few hours away. So,
Yep, not far at all. Just up 35 a bit.
yeah, yeah. So it's been awesome. I've had the privilege to pour into kids and pour into families for the last 3 decades, and sometimes I have to pinch myself. Like, I'm getting paid to do this, and don't get me wrong. There's a lot of challenges that come with that. There's a lot of challenges working for different churches and organizations, but at the end of the day, kind of what started out back in the day, rocking out on stage because I cared for young people, turned into something that I never could even possibly dream of. And it's been a good ride. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how health played in on all of that. When did you kind of realize that you were in a bad place, and what was that like?
Well, gosh, when you're working with kids and you're doing Friday night pizza parties, and you're Sunday morning you're serving Mountain Dew, and that just becomes the norm, and you're grabbing whatever's around. I think for a good part of my adult life, I probably had an issue, but I don't think I was ever really coming to terms with it. And really, it was just a couple years ago. It was August of 2018. And my family actually was in California. They were visiting family, and I wasn't able to go because I was conducting a on-campus like day camp here at the church. And we had hundreds of kids, and we had a whole camp that actually comes and brings camp to the church and completely transports the whole church into a camp. And it was awesome, right? Like, camp was happening here at church. And at the end of that week, I just remember going home and just feeling a few things. I was exhausted, and I'd never felt like that exhausted in my entire life. And I also felt alone because my family was gone. And a little background is, because I was that latchkey kid back when I was a kid, I've always never done alone well, if that makes any sense. And so, there I was alone, I was exhausted, and I just literally felt like I had hit rock bottom, and I was at a very dark place in my life. And I don't know what propelled me to step on the scale. Like, that was exactly what I needed to do, but it was really exactly the thing I needed to do, because I got on the scale and I realized that I was 30 some pounds away from 400 pounds. And I just broke down in that bathroom that night. And I just thought to myself, what am I doing? What have I been doing? How did I how did I even allow myself to get to this place and get to this moment? And how is it that I've lived my life? And how is it that everybody around me has kind of just accepted it that way, you know? And, you know, a lot of people call me Big T, you know, Big T's in the house, you know, and that kind of became the, you know, kind of the nickname and stuff. And I kind of like owned that. And that's right. I'm Big T and nobody's going to mess with me. And don't look at my daughters because I'm going to stare you down, and, you know, because that's the thing. If people didn't know that I was a pastor, they thought I was either like on the show Sopranos or that I was doing something. Because if I'm not smiling, you're going like, I'm not messing with that guy. Like, we're just not going to, we're not going to go there. But, you know, I'm sitting in that moment and I'm thinking to myself, you know what, if I don't actually get control of what's going on in my life right now, my life is either going to end abruptly, like I'm physically going to die. At the very least, emotionally, I realized, I think in that moment that I was dead inside. And that here I was trying to give and pour out to other people and to be a leader at a church for a bunch of kids and a bunch of families. And I had absolutely nothing left to give anymore. I was spent. I was done. And I realized that if I didn't make a change in that moment, that I was going to continue down a pretty dark path. And I don't know if fear was a factor or if just like reality hit me, but something snapped inside of me, guys. You know, something just snapped and said, I want more for my life. I want to actually step into the things that are waiting for me, I think, on the other side of me being so fat, you know, and being so unhealthy. And it wasn't even just about the weight loss. It was about all parts of me. You know, it was about my mind and my heart, my soul, you know, like the physical aspect, the mental aspect, you know, just becoming whole. I realized that if I was going to change, I was going to have to change everything about me, you know, and really start to go down a path of unlearning everything that I had taught myself for 30 years. You know?
So I want to pause you for just a second because you hit on a few things that I want to touch on while we're in this moment here.
Sure.
Number one, you said you were 30 pounds away from 400 pounds. That's a big guy. Tell us what your body type is, your height, et cetera, real quick. So we can kind of, you know, because if you're 6'10", 400 is not great, but you're a big T kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm 6'1". You know, so I'm not too short. I'm not crazy tall either.
Right.
Kind of just a big guy. I got broad shoulders, you know, and, you know, but, so close to 400 pounds for a 6'1" frame, you know,
that's a lot.
It is a lot. And, you know, a lot of people did me a lot of injustice when I was a little younger. They had come up and when I told them how much I actually weighed, and this was even way before I got to that number, people would say, "Oh, there's no way you weigh that. Like you carry your weight so well." And, you know, like, hey, thanks. You know, they mean well, they're trying to be nice. But, you know, you start interjecting that and going, yeah, I'm good, you know, and you really start telling yourself that you're good. And as the years go on and you never change, things continue to not be good. But yeah, so that's me, 6'1", broad shoulders, pretty good size frame, but still close to 400. And it was just too much.
Did it creep up on you? Because we've had guys on the show talking about how, and I forget who it was just a few weeks back, he was saying, you know, like every year he'd have to go get a new shirt up another size. And he just kind of like, you know, that old shirt's out of style or anything. But he was kind of justifying it rather than saying, I just went from a large 3 years ago to an XL to a 2X kind of thing. So, I get exactly where you're at in that bathroom and stepping on the scale and all of that. But were there moments leading up to it that you kind of was like, interesting?
Oh, yeah. Well, even coming to Texas when I moved here, you know, my wife took me to the store. We were trying to just get me some new clothes, you know, so that I could come in and just, you know, look fresh, you know, just feel good about walking into the new job. And I realized very quickly that I had gone from, you know, a 3X to a 4X, and the 4X was now starting to feel a little bit tight. It was snug. And there was that part of me that's saying there's no way I'm going to ever put on a 5X shirt because it's just not, like it was, I don't know if it was denial or pride or all of the above. So I bought these 4X shirts that were a little snug and they looked awkward, so there I was trying to feel good about myself at my new job. And, I know I have to imagine that people here were probably like, wow, we really like Tony's personality, but man, I hope he doesn't die. Like I hope he doesn't, like give out. Like, is he going to have the energy and what it takes to
Right.
do this job?
Right.
And so yeah, there was a lot of things like that, man. Just my sleep. I went from doing sleeping okay to having severe sleep apnea for way too long. In fact, I should have went sooner to do a sleep sleep study. And when I actually finally was, my wife finally talked me into going and getting a sleep study done. I'll never forget the doctor. He comes in and he's like, how are you feeling? And I go, I'm good. He goes, I'm surprised to hear you say that because just based on, your sleep that we just studied, I'm even surprised that you're half alive right now, And he goes, you had so many interruptions per hour. Like it was off the chart, like dangerous off the chart. And you basically were going, like large amounts of seconds without breathing and all that kind of stuff. So, I got on the CPAP machine and started sleeping better, started breathing better, all that kind of stuff. But it still wasn't enough to change my patterns, like it kind of just put a Band-Aid on a bigger issue. I think part of what happened with me too was I had worked for a couple churches before I came here that weren't necessarily the healthiest places to work. The staff wasn't the best. The pastor kind of had some of, their own issues. And so I kind of flopped around from a couple churches. And when I came here, things had shifted. I was actually now working with a staff that, nobody's perfect. We all have our issues, but the way that this place operates now, so much healthier than I had seen over the last several years. And so I felt like I was in a position like, wow, okay, this door opened up to be in a new place, in a new job with actually working with a healthy staff, somewhere that I want to be. And I knew like there was a part of that too that said, okay, I feel like that door's been open and maybe this door also needs to be open so that I can not just be working at a healthy place, but that I could take that and run with it and I'll actually be healthy myself. So.
One other thing I want to ask, again, kind of where we're at in the moment with what you've been sharing, because it hit a personal nerve here, was talking about giving all that you have until you can't give anymore. And I think that a lot of people do have those truly good hearts that they want to help anybody and everybody that they can at the point of sacrificing their mental, physical, emotional health.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I want to ask this just yet because I want to know more about your story, but I want to know how you realized that then versus where you are today in how you give, but also how you take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think it really was in that moment, being in that dark place in that restroom and just realize that there was no part of me that was going to be able to give any more. And not just to people here at the church and in the community, but even when my family came back, my wife, my kids, like I wasn't even being the best that I possibly could be, for them. And as a pastor, and as somebody that's really trying to live a life of being an example to others and trying to show people what that looks like, trying to show people what good leadership looks like, trying to be real with people, trying to be transparent, with people and saying, hey, we all have struggles. But at the same time, trying to just really be real with people. But I realized that I wasn't doing any of that and I wasn't doing it well. and yeah, as much as people loved me and they cared for me, I still think there was a part of a lot of unspoken stuff in the room when I would walk in the room. I think people are like, wow, we really love that guy, but he's not really setting a great example. And I think I think we can all relate to that, right? Like that is the problem with having a weight issue, right? It's right in front of everybody. Everybody sees it. It's not like dealing with depression, or if you're an alcoholic, or you're just you're a power hungry kind of person. You can hide some of those things. You can mask some of those things. You can pretend like those things aren't really part of your life. But when you're struggling with weight, whether you're a depressed, overweight guy or you're just a happy-go-lucky guy, you walk in the room and people see your struggle, whether you like it or not. It's there, and it's for the whole world to see.
Yeah.
And I lived way too many years for the whole world to see. And a lot of people would say, "Hey, all people need is 10 seconds with you, Big T," because once they hear you and start talking to you, people just automatically fall in love with you. Well, I get that people were trying to compliment me and say, "Hey, you got a great personality," and people really do love you when they get to know you. But that didn't help me. You know what I mean? Like that was like, yeah, that's right. I just need people to just know who I am as a person. And if they don't like that I'm overweight, well, that's their loss, that kind of thing. But still, at the end of the day, it wasn't me putting my best foot forward as a pastor and trying to be a leader in my community.
Absolutely. And we kind of, I asked if, or kind of mentioned this as we were doing our pre-recording chat and getting set up. As a fellow Christian and someone who'd been involved heavily in ministry, I haven't been on staff necessarily with many churches, but I've put in as many hours as a lot of staff members.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've realized, and one of the core principles of being a Christian, is that we're supposed to be good stewards of the things that we were given. And I think that extends to everything, including our health.
Oh, yeah.
And so being a pastor, being in front of the people, being that example, I think it's important to have that in the back of our mind, that people are looking at me. And if I'm up here leading worship and I'm 200 pounds overweight, then, that's not really shining very well on our Creator, is it?
No.
Those are the types of things that I've realized as I've been gathering the healing. What has your experience been with that?
Yeah. I think it was always tucked away, to be honest with you, my friend. I think I was always thinking about those things, but I think like for a lot of people that are overweight, you start to make excuses to justify your life, your lifestyle, and your behavior. And so I think for many years, I just got into the pattern of doing that. I think the other part of it was that there wasn't a ton of people coming up like within the church and people that were in leadership positions and challenging me and saying, "Hey, have you thought about, changing some of your lifestyle choices?" Because I think it could bid you well as just a leader for your family, for what you're doing here at the church. But we want you to be the best, that you can be. And I don't know if you're being the best. I didn't have anybody kind of coming and trying to push those buttons. Now, I did have one friend who actually got me the job at this church here. And so I think some of it was planted in that, because he's a guy that does, he's kind of like a headhunter for churches. Churches hire him, and then he comes and brings like kind of the cream of the crop and presents to churches anyway. But when we were going through the whole hiring process, he said some pointed things to me, and he said it in a caring and loving way. But he basically just said, "Man, Tony, like, I want the very best for you. I want you to step into this new role, and I want you to knock it out of the park. But I feel like some of your issues with your weight and the way that you lived could potentially prevent some of that ever being realized in your life. And I just don't want that for you. I don't want that to be limited." And I'll tell you what, guys, that was the first time like that somebody really spoke like that kind of brutal truth to me. And he's a believer, and he's a church guy. But coming from him, I had grown to respect him. And even to this day, he's one of my best friends. And I realized that he wasn't telling me that to hurt me. He wasn't telling me that to limit me. No, he was telling me that because he absolutely cared about me and wanted to see me flourish and to grow and to be better. And then he ended with, I see so much potential in you, but I also see that you can cut all of that short if you don't start making some changes in your life.
Yeah.
So that was March. So that was March of 2000. That was March of 2018. So that's when the seed kind of got planted inside of me. And then you fast forward to August of 2018, and that's when I was alone in that bathroom. And but when you speak words into people, I think they're for purposes seen and unseen. Sometimes you don't realize the impact that they might have on a person's life, but sometimes it takes other things and other events and other maybe words to take place before that stuff starts to really, start to grow inside of you. And it did. And on that day, his words definitely were ringing true.
Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Would you help us spread the word about the Keto Man's Club by sharing with your friends and family? We're available on all podcast platforms, so just search for Keto Man's Club and you'll find us. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. Our web address leads to our Facebook group, theketomansclub.com. That's TheKetoMansClub.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out via email to ketomansclubpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.